motivation. We're going to talk about some meditation. We're going to talk about some inspiration. If it's not one of the three, I don't want it. Getting ourselves into that place where we're utilizing our focus, knowledge, and discipline. Asking ourselves the types of questions. Is what I'm doing today, is it motivation, is it meditation, is it inspiration? And sometimes we're going to go through times when the challenges that we're facing off against, the things that we're going through, are there to ask us a question. They're there to ask us if we can truly make it through it, if we can sit down and if we can work through those times when we feel like we're shooting in the dark, or we're going through things that, we don't know if we can make it through. And, how do you start utilizing those times? How do you start utilizing those places? How do you start to get to that point where what you have and what you're doing is worth it? And you see, a lot of the things that we go through, a lot of the places that we're looking to achieve, we face off against challenges with. And as we're working through those challenges, as we're putting ourselves in that kind of a place, as we're putting ourselves in that kind of a mentality, it requires a level of focus. It requires, you believing in yourself, for instance. It requires you giving yourself the space, giving yourself the time, putting yourself in the place where you actually can face off against those kind of challenges. And a lot of times when we're going through those kind of challenges, it's when we set ourselves in a place where the mentality actually starts to open up. And when we're focusing, when we're truly focusing, and we're putting ourselves in a place where our tools, where our gifts, where our talents start to work, it's not going to be easy. And how do you start to work on it when things are not easy for you? How do you start to give yourself a bit of time each day? Give yourself a bit of a place where you're able to manifest, where you're able to actually sit down and build from within yourselves. And so, I just want to focus on that a little bit today, and I want us to start to realize that, sometimes things aren't always going to be, hot. Sometimes it's going to be extremely cold, and, that can also be the challenge. That can also be the growth. It can be the place inside of ourselves where focus starts to come from, where you could start to pick yourself up, where you could say, hey, I can make it through these challenges. And, as we're working through them, as we're putting ourselves in that kind of a place, as we're giving ourselves that kind of mentality, we will start to find the strength. We will find the ability inside of ourselves to continue to focus, to continue to push, to continue to put ourselves in a place where growth is. And, ask that question every day. How can we push ourselves to that point? How can we put ourselves in a place where we're using our skills, right? Where we're using our talents, where we're utilizing what we have on the inside, and how what we have on the inside is helping us out. And so, are you doing that for yourself today? Are you giving yourself that kind of place? Are you working through your challenges? Many different challenges that we face off against on a daily basis. The very many things that each of us have going on in our process, and it is that what drives you to be yourself. That's the type of questions that we ask. That's the type of network that we build. Is one that talks about motivation, meditation, inspiration. And I remember being in that time and being in that space where the heat felt almost like it was too much at times. The things that is facing off against, that were going on inside, were testing me. They were testing the ability inside it to see if it was worth it, if you could really continue to focus to that point, if you could continue to put yourself in that place where you have the ability inside of you to grow. You have the ability inside of you to work through challenges. You have the ability inside of you to focus, right? And when do we start asking those kinds of questions of ourselves? When do we start to believe in who we are, and start to believe in our abilities, and believe in our being? And I look at a lot of the skills that people acquire throughout their lives, like the ability to read, the ability to write, the ability to speak. And I see that we're all along those stages in different places. We're all along those stages at different times, and with different skills. And so how do we utilize this great universe that we live in? How do we start to pick up books and start to read and start to use those kind of skills? And how do we start to access the parts of ourselves that nobody else can do for you? And I sit here, and I remember earlier today being at the lake and sitting and doing meditation, and as I was doing the breath work, I could feel the cold. I could feel the below 50-degree weather. I could feel the against my skin. And for a normal person, they would almost leave their jacket on, right? But what about when the cold is being robbed from you? The ability for your own self to create that energy, the ability for you to focus to that point where you can overcome your challenges, And so, is that a place of growth, right? Is it a place of vibration? Is it a place where, when you are that focused, you can overcome those things? And it's on a daily that I start to recognize that. It's on a daily that I see the growth, not in just myself, but in other people that I have around me, and in the community, and my nearly 4,000 followers on Facebook, and my motivation, meditation, inspiration.yoga, and my podcast. I see you guys on my WordPress website as well too, and I recognize that you are all facing off against different challenges. You're facing off against things that, when other people see them, they might feel like, you might feel like it's, they've never been through what you've been through. And it's when you embrace your own challenges that you have the ability to overcome them. It's when you're putting yourself in a place where your mentality starts to open up, where your ability inside of who you are starts to become. And it's inside of that place that self-growth lays, my friends. It's inside of that place where you allow positivity to take shape, to take form, And as I was sitting there, and I was without a shirt on, no jacket, no socks, just me, meditation, focusing through that, focusing to that point where what was going on was greater than the challenges on the outside. I started to realize that we got to be patient with ourselves. We got to sit down with the skills that we have. We got to sit down with the talents that we have inside, the abilities that we have inside, and give ourselves that kind of capability, right? So if you want to do something great, find a place to have patience. Find a place to find simplicity. Find a place to where you are just simply doing the best with what you have. And so that is what I recognized as I was sitting down today. I recognized that to do things well doesn't mean to do many things. It means to do fewer things and appreciate the things that you have. Appreciate the abilities, the skills that you have inside of yourself. I recognize that everywhere and every place that we go, we can find those places. You can find those times. You can find those abilities inside of yourself and inside of your mentality. And it's amazing that, I went from being near the beach, meditating, going in saunas, to finding the energy inside, finding the focus, finding the ability to utilize that at below 50 degrees, and when it drops even lower again in the next year, I look forward to being able to do the same at 27 or -2, or it doesn't matter what the temperature is. It's what's going on inside of you that matters the most. So let's go ahead and start visiting that a little bit. Let's go ahead and start talking about some of those skills. One of those skills that a lot of people lack is the ability to sit down and read, the ability to pick up content, to start to put it in front of yourself and to give yourself a place, give yourself a little bit of your day, to give yourself a little bit of your space, And like I was sitting there yesterday and I was teaching and I was sitting down and doing meditation at the lake. And I started to explain that when we give ourselves time, the rest of the things that we face off against the rest of the things that we tackle, they start to fit into place. The puzzle pieces start to come together. The things that you have going on around you, you start to see, you start to understand, you start to gain those little pieces that are worth it, And I was sitting there this morning and I was remembering, as I was at 45 minutes into it, I was like, focus, start singing, start doing vocal meditation, start getting that going. You know that the process, you can do this, you can make it through this. And you really got to become best friends with yourself. You really got to believe in who you are. You got to believe in your ability to be who you are inside, that it's not versus anybody else. It's about you. It's about enjoying your journey. And I remember the sun rising and just feeling the rays come in, and I could feel the warmth from the sun, the warmth from the ability within. Okay. And when you focus to that point where what's going on inside becomes greater than the challenges around you, then the ability to overcome the challenges that you're facing off against becomes available. And, I realized that with heat, like the amount of time that I spent in the sauna, the amount of time that I spent in that place. And it's wonderful to feel that with different forms and different elements, like with cold temperatures too, And, it gives you the ability to recognize that focusing is so important, to putting yourself in a place and setting a task or a goal in front of yourself and saying, let me go ahead and see if I can achieve this. Let me go ahead and see if I can do this. You'd be more surprised than anything when you complete it. When you sit down and you say, hey, let's go ahead and see if we can do it. And then you truly do it, And then all of a sudden you see and you believe in yourself. You start to believe in your ability. You start to believe in your mentality. And this can work into other parts of our life too. It can work into our companionships. It can work into our professions. And it builds from that place of focus. It builds from that ability for you to just sit down with you, to sit down inside of who you are, to start to utilize your gifts, to utilize your talents, and utilize your abilities. And each of us have skills. We have talents. We have abilities. So are you using yours is the question. It's not that you don't have any, because if you have an ability to focus, if you have an ability to do something, then you can do amazing things even with that little bit that you have. And, it is a wonderful thing to face off against challenge. It's a wonderful thing to have things to be able to overcome, and how do we embrace those? You know what I mean? How do we start to utilize those challenges? And another skill that's utilizable a lot is getting into a structure, getting into a place where you make sure that you give yourself that kind of time on a daily basis, where you give yourself that kind of a place where you have the ability to have that kind of time for yourself. When you start to have that kind of time for yourself, you'll be in shock at how many amazing things you'll be able to accomplish, about how many amazing things you'll be able to overcome. And, when I'm sitting there and I'm doing meditation, when I'm sitting there and I have people asking me to learn, and I'm sitting there and I'm focusing, and, I remember being at a time when people would ask me, how are you able to do this inside the sauna? How are you able to do this? And, it's the same exact thing that they can ask themselves as well. How are you able to live your life? How are you able to make it through your day? How are you able to focus to that place where you're using your gifts and your talents, And we see those people that are that motivation out there. We see those people that are achieving the high levels of success in the things that they take on. We see those people who are able to do things that other people would call amazing. And what separates them from you? What makes them so much more worthy of having that than you? And, it's truly amazing that challenges are here. It's truly amazing that we have things that we can overcome. It really lets me realize that the foundation and focus is what it's about. And when you start to build a foundation and focus, it'll give you the ability to push even when you feel like it's not possible. It'll give you the ability to continue when other people don't think it's possible inside of themselves. You can start to have a certain type of drive. You can start to have a certain type of ability. And it's like almost 2 years since I started doing videos. It's almost 2 years that I've been sitting here doing these kinds of stuff. And, I really truly enjoy this type of stuff. I really enjoy this type of vibration and this kind of focus, And I want to share it with you. I want to inspire you. I want to uplift you. I want you to believe in yourselves and to start to believe in your abilities and start to know that it's worth it, And truly start to overcome those kind of challenges. It's amazing that I faced off against the things that I have. I'm grateful to even be alive, And I'm telling you, you can do it too. You can overcome your challenges. You can get to that place inside of who you are when you start to believe in you start to believe in your ability and your purpose and your journey, When I was facing off against things, it wasn't about anybody else. It was about, the ability within, the ability to to believe in oneself. You know what I mean? And I think about the 3.5 years that I did telesales, the 2.5 years that I did car sales, the 5 years of Uber driving, the multiple people that have come to seek out meditation, the ability to build motivation, meditation, inspiration, the ability to continue to push forward, to continue to go in the direction to where people are becoming uplifted. Nearly 4,000 people that I have going on my Facebook, motivation, meditation, inspiration. The people on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, like YouTube. I think about all of you, and I think about the community, and I think about motivation, meditation, and inspiration on a daily. I remember sleeping in my van and being in a place where I was asking myself that question every single day: is what I'm doing today, is it motivation? Is what I'm doing today, is it meditation? Is it inspiration? Because if it's not one of the three, I don't want it, and we started to realize that what we write down we can achieve, what we start to put in front of ourselves, what we start to give ourselves the ability to do, what we give ourselves the ability to overcome. And so it's worth it. It's worth finding a place inside of yourself. And, I look at all these people and they get these 10,000 hour certifications, but sometimes they don't really learn after that 1,000 or 10,000 hour really how to get to the place of mastery, how to get to that place where it's part of who you are, And I don't know anything else but to be myself. I don't know anything else but to be who I am inside. I don't know anything else but to utilize those skills and to utilize those talents and utilize those abilities. It's a reminder on a daily basis, this, what I'm saying? And it's a reminder that we're worth it. Each of you have skills, each of you have talents. Are you utilizing them? Are you sitting down and using the skills that you learned in school? Are you utilizing the ability to write things down, to read things, to study, to listen to instructionals, to give instructionals, to actually use the skills that you have? And that can be in your professions as well. That can be in your place of business or your place of companionships. Are you utilizing it? That's the type of question that I'm asking you today. Are you utilizing the skills that you have? Are you utilizing the ability within yourself, within your being? Are you applying yourself with that kind of place? If you're not writing things down, if you're not putting things in front of who you are, if you're not asking the questions that only you can ask, only you can ask of yourself, if you're not getting down to that place of self-honesty, if you're not getting to that place where you're seeing self-growth, where the people that are around you are coming from that place, then you're missing out. You're missing out big time on the things that you can achieve. Missing out big time on the positive things that can move into your direction, the positive things that can become a part of your vibration. And so that's why writing things down is important. It's important to your journey. It's important to your path. It's important to your purpose, in yourself. When you focus, when you give yourself that kind of a place, when you give yourself that kind of an ability, you start to notice a motivation. You start to be known as somebody who really has the ability to start to pull yourself together, to pull your place in such a way that the people start coming in your direction that are meant to be in your direction. And so I always say that if you start to focus on positivity, you start to put yourself in a place, then you're going to have to let the things that are not meant for you move out of the way, and they will on their own. And I really mean that when you start to observe, you start to focus to that place where you start to have a solid foundation in yourself. You know? Start to have a solid foundation within your being, then you'll start to notice that your dreams start to become possible. You start to notice that it's not going to be easy. And, when you're working with focus, when you're working on that trait, you will start to see that the people that start to truly become motivated by you will see that. They're going to see how focused you truly are. They're going to see how focused you are to utilize your gifts, to utilize your talents. And it's a reminder of when we're sitting down and we're working with gold and heat, or we're working through challenges, or we're working on, can we truly get down on that level? And that's like what we go through on a daily, right? So let's go ahead and get a little closer to our vibration. Let's put ourselves in a place of positivity where we see Newton's third law, which is for each action there's an equal and opposite. And we start to take it in positive and negative forces, and we start turning them towards positivity. We start turning them towards our ability within who we are, where we start to use those parts of our gifts, those places where you focus. Where are those places that you put your mind? Where is it that you start to put your ability in? What is it that you're looking to overcome? And I see that. I see that a lot of people neglect that part of themselves. And we each have that inside of who we are. We have that inside of our beings, And as I grow, as my community grows, as motivation, meditation, inspiration grows, as we build a place of people that are focused, that we build a place where the ability within starts to happen, where the mentality starts to open up, It takes it beyond, it takes it to the place where you start to have more, you start to achieve more, you start to believe more in yourself, And, are you enjoying that process? Are you allowing yourself that kind of ability, where you find that place inside of who you are, you know what I'm saying? And it takes that kind of a being, it takes that kind of a focus, it takes that kind of a mentality, it takes that kind of an ability, it takes that kind of shape and form within yourselves. You see, you are yet but a tool, and like a tool requires shaping it, it requires forming it requires sometimes hot, it requires sometimes cold to shape you. And when you allow that process to start working within you, when you allow that process to allow you to have that kind of growth, when you allow it to have that kind of a place where you start to believe in yourself and you start to believe in your ability, it's going to require patience, it's going to require observation, it's going to require the ability to be who you are on the inside, the ability to be who you are within your being, to be who you are within your purpose, within your journey. And each of us have that kind of a place. We have that kind of a qualification. You have a life. You have things that you go through and things that you work on. You have things that you can overcome. And a lot of these things show up as emotions. They show up as fears. They show up as pains. And they're meant to teach you. They're meant for you to become the student, to study the course, to study the lesson, to gain the access to the purpose. And to be able to make it through it is an amazing thing. And it's an ability inside of ourselves that takes us to that place. It's an ability inside of our beings that starts to get that part of our vibration going, and inside utilizing that place of study, utilizing that place inside of who you are is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about utilizing that person inside of your vibration, that when it communicates with you, turn left, go right. Hearing what I'm saying? This emotion did this thing did this. And, it's to liken like the cold. If you're outside in the cold, but you know that you have the warmth inside of you to overcome it, then you have the ability to overcome it. And it's amazing that we have that kind of energy within ourselves, right? We have that kind of place where we can go within who we are, and we can find a way to overcome challenges that other people would consider impossible. And so each individual energy field is related to you in a different way. It's related to you in the way you stand your ground in your professions, to the way you think, the way your heart works, the way your depth perception, the ability to voice yourself. These are all different energy fields. They're different parts of your being, your ability to feel when people are around you, when you're in place or in space or in your own very vibration. Each energy field is related to you, and it's amazing how many people neglect that ability. They neglect that energy that flows inside, and what ways do you use it? Some of us, some people that I know are singers. Some people that I know do martial arts, or they'll do yoga, or they'll do different forms of expressing yourself. All of those forms are meditation, because when the energy starts to become applied, when it starts to be utilized inside of who we are, when it starts to become a part of who we are, then we start to decompress those things that hold us back. We start to become that student within our lives, to become that person inside of who we are. And it's interesting when you're watching others going through those kinds of challenges, when you're watching others that are going through things that you can only observe. Can we do that within ourselves? Can we do that within our beings? Can we observe our own lives? Can we observe our own talents? Can we utilize our mentalities? And you see, it's inside of that that the true teacher lays. It's inside of that where the student within sits down with the teacher. And when we start to observe our lives, when we start to observe our abilities, and we start to observe our talents, it's almost like when the sun rises and it's cold and you feel the rays of the sun, when you're in that kind of mentality where even the littlest things bring you joy. A lot of people look for a whole bunch of things in places that are not close to who they are on the inside, that are not close to places.
Do you think we can just then take a sledge from the bottom side and knock the boards out? Sledge it out.
Where we have that ability, and it's inside of who we are that we find ourselves, and it's like to be in a tunnel of darkness, and you've got to say to yourself, I can get up, or I can bypass the emotions, I can bypass the fears, I can bypass the pains. And I was sitting there, and my toes turned blue when I got up to go walk. But the thing is that I didn't let anything affect me. You know what I'm saying? I kept on going within that vibration that greater than those challenges. You got to be greater than the things that you're facing off against. You got to be prepared inside. You got to be prepared within your mentality, prepared within your ability. And a lot of people don't cut that deep. They don't cut that universal thread. They're not willing to sit down and grind on that level. And when we do grind on that level, a lot of people push you away, and they'll tell you it's not possible. I can't do it. I can't achieve it. When you're doing those things that are giving you that ability inside of yourself to find that place, when another one that I just went through was I carry my equipment with me, and I used to just carry it by hand, and then I ended up getting a carrier for it, and a close friend was telling me that person close to my heart, close to my ability within, they were telling me, I got you this case because I saw you carrying everything, because you were utilizing what you have. And it's amazing that it manifested itself, and it manifested in a form of a tool. It manifested in a form of an ability, and I focus, and we utilize that knowledge within. We become students and we become teachers within ourselves. We become teachers within our own vibration, and I look forward to, even when the temperatures drop, to be able to do the same thing, to overcome those type of things. And when it's hot, the same exact way, it's a part of the same exact vibration. And it's quite liberating to be able to do that. It's quite liberating to know that if it's negative 110 degrees or positive 190 degrees, that what's going on inside is greater than the challenges going on around, right? And I've already been on the positive side. I've already been 190 degrees for an hour, in a sauna, or 160 or so, and walked out alive, or longer, and it's inside of that place where we find that inside of ourselves, that we find that our knowledge is worth it. You know, it's when we find that place where we start to believe in who we are. You know, I recognize that when the student meets the teacher inside, that it's a wake-up call, okay? It's a wake-up call when you recognize that you can both be a student and a teacher, because society has taught us to go seek out other people, to seek out people that can teach, that can be that person for you. But it's not until you're willing to be that person inside of yourself that the real teacher shows up. You know, it's not until you're willing to be that person inside of your mentality that you show up, you know, and what knowledge you have inside starts to open up. Are you applying it though? Are you using that part of yourself? Are you, you know, connecting your focus and your knowledge to a point where you become the discipline, where you become the ability, where you use those skills, where you use those tasks, where you use those abilities inside of who you are. And you know, it's what I seek out on a daily, you know, and that's why I truly enjoy sitting down and using, you know, meditation and using the ability within. And you know, I see these instructors or those teachers that are, you know, trying to teach these classes, and you know, are they having the patience in their own observation? You know, are they having the patient within themselves? You know, to me, to truly be qualified to teach means that you must study. It means that you must grow. You must observe your ability to overcome your reflection. And I see a lot of teachers that go for a certification, and they get the certification. They're not ready to teach. They're not ready to be that kind of person inside. And, you know, it comes down to the test is when you get injured. It comes down to the test when, you know, you go through things. Like, I think about when both of my feet were, you know, swollen, and for 2 years I couldn't run or walk. Or when my hand was hit by a truck, or when both my hips were displaced, my vertebrae, and my neck was elongated.
Pretty good. I don't know if you're on the phone. I heard you talking, so.
I am, but it's okay.
Well, I'll just give you a heads up. We got everything else inspected. The tires right now don't look like it. I know there's